Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee.
Fight against Islamic supremacism.
As a Muslim, if Muslims they invade a country or there is a Muslim Christian country or whatever to spread Islam, I am supporting 100%.
There you go. So there you got it on camera. If Muslims invade Christian lands to spread Islam, he is in favor of it.
I am.
There you go. And these are the kind of Islamist ideology, and you should be opposed. I think you should be deported from the country.
So I have no right to freedom of religion.
Yeah, you shouldn't be here. You should be forced to leave.
No
My country will be better without you in it, and I think you should be expelled from the country.
So how come that Muslims are invading Europe while in the past, since Islam was created in the 7th century, they have tried and tried with armies and never succeeded. They only succeeded in Eastern Europe and in Spain, but were eventually always pushed back, and with armies they never had the strength to attack the nations created through Christ. So the only way for other peoples with other gods to invade Europe is to take away Christ from society and lead the people of God away from God. This will tear down the walls that will protect us. But now Muslims walk right in, there is no counteraction, and slowly Europe is being flooded by Islam. But to understand how Muslims always could have gone so far is to understand who is behind Islam. And if you realize and go back in history and you understand the history of the Canaanites, the Edomites, who intermixed with Ishmaelites, and how Islam came to be and who is behind the creation of Islam, right? Because these people who originate from the Canaanites and from the Edomites, right, who carry this Babylonian spirit, if you realize they are behind this creation of Islam by their own admission as a broom against the West, you'll understand why Islam came so far always. Because it was those very people who always weakened the nations and opened the doors for Islam to come in. But I want to take a look at the now. How come that the European nations have walked away from God and accepted other peoples and other gods, while God specifically told us not to do this? And the French Revolution is a great example of how the Edomites, who carried the Babylonian spirit, took away the Christian monarchy and replaced it with their own ideas, with their old Talmudian philosophy, the traditions of man, the philosophy of man, and how they think they are the enlightened ones, led by their god Lucifer. But Lucifer is not a real god. Lucifer is just a Latin translation for what Isaiah wrote about the king of Babylon, how he exalted himself and tried to make him equal to God, right? And this Babylonian ideology, this Babylonian spirit was carried on by the Edomites, eventually creating the books we call the Talmudian, the Babylonian Talmud. But it doesn't matter what they believe or what gods they have. If we keep to God's instructions, then they cannot even touch us. So the way for them to enter into our nations and pollute our nations with Babylonian traditions and ideas and philosophy was to weaken the nations by de-Christianizing the West. So the Babylonian people wanted to infiltrate Christianity, and this is done through Freemasonry. And so-called Christian leaders of European nations, and also many so-called Christian founding fathers of America, were Freemasons. And one of the greatest deceptions they have done, because Satan deceived, he beguiled. So he tempts you in a way that you even notice it, that you can't see the wrong. That what they say can even sound really good. And one of these things is called humanism, that states that all men are created equal. This is a Freemasonic teaching.
The Constitution says we hold these truths to be self, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator.
What does God have to say about all this?
And the Lord hath avouched thee this day to be his peculiar people, as he hath promised thee, and that thou shouldest keep all his commandments, and to make thee high above all nations which he hath made, in praise, and in name, and in honor, and that thou mayest be an holy people unto the Lord thy God, as he hath spoken.
But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
So how come that God's people are no longer God's people, but that all races and nations are now God's people? It all started long time ago, and it is all put down in writing by King James and his translators. And you guessed it, yes, King James was also a Freemason, and so were his translators. King James even had 2 Polish Jews in his translation group who changed scripture. But if other nations and other peoples also can be called by his name, in other words, we just have to convert them, then the line between other peoples who believe and not believe is very small. Because how can you discriminate against other people based on their religion, right? This has taken away the special role to be a light to the world, to be a set apart people unto the Lord away. So how exactly did King James change scripture so that there is no more distinction between God's set apart people and the rest of the world? Well, many times King James changed verses that talk about Judean or a Judahite and a Greek or a Hellenized person. There is no difference between it. And he translated it as there is no difference between a Jew and a Gentile. And this is a grave mistranslation. Often the word ethnos, which means nation, but ethnos means someone of the same ethnicity, the same people who are among the nations. For example, when Jesus said, go and spread the gospel to all ethnos, that means his mission was to reconcile the lost sheep who were in the nations, right? Often this is translated as Gentiles, as being supposed to be non-Israelites. But Jesus' mission was, by his own words, that he came not but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Also, Paul was not sent to the non-Israelites, to the Gentiles. Paul went on the same mission, right? After Jesus died, was resurrected, through God's Spirit, the disciples were risen into the new covenant, and they went into the nations to teach the gospel to the lost tribes of the house of Israel. It was the gospel of reconciliation, because God's people were in covenant and the northern house of Israel was divorced by God. But they were going to be reconciled. The word reconciled means that you are brought back in a relationship that you once had. If you never were in a covenant or in a relationship with God, you cannot be reconciled. So this word Gentile is not found in the Greek scriptures. It's talking about the Hellenized people, the people of Israel scattered all over the place, and they became Hellenized. They became Greek into the Greek philosophy, the Greek gods. They were Hellenized, and they needed to be brought back into covenant through the new covenant. That's why there is no difference between a Judean, the Israelites who still kept the law, and the Hellenized who no longer had God's law. They all were going to be reconciled, saved through grace, through faith, by grace through faith. But our Edomite friends didn't like that one bit. right? And they were not accepted in Europe for a long time because they had different gods, different Babylonian philosophies, and the traditions were not accepted in Europe. So they started to infiltrate the Roman Catholic Church. They are the ones behind the Jesuit order, and through the Roman Catholic Church they have brought in the universal gospel that will blur the lines between God's people and other nations. So if all men are created equal and God sees all men as equal, then the fact that some people do believe in Jesus or not believe in Jesus or even have other gods is irrelevant. Whether you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist, it doesn't really matter because all men are created equal according to them. And all this has led to other peoples even ruling over us. We see now in Europe that we have even Muslim mayors, even the Prime Minister is a Muslim. We see it in Holland, in Germany, in France. More and more non-white Israelites are in positions of rulership. Also in America we see it more and more. But someone of an Islamic background, deep inside, he can never have the best interest for the indigenous white Christian people. Impossible. But it doesn't matter, right? Because we're all created equal according to them. I have little problem with other people's coming in, right? To help us out if we need work, for example, right? But these nations are supposed to be ruled by Christ, and therefore our rulership must be in the hands who are working in the Spirit of Christ. And if we obey God's principles, God's instructions to be a set-apart people and obey His laws, we are free, powerful, prosperous, and we can even be a blessing to the rest of the world. But we see that Edom has taken away these blessings and our nations are being changed and becoming unrecognizable. And it's getting worse by the day.
Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way.
So there you go, folks. We are not to set a stranger in any authority over us. Neither should we have someone of our own stock who causes us to return to Egypt. And that is exactly what has happened. God bless you all.
I heard your prayer, and I have chosen this temple as the place where sacrifices will be offered to me. Suppose I hold back the rain, or send locusts to eat the crops, or make my people suffer with deadly diseases. If my own people will humbly pray and turn back to me and stop sinning, then I will answer them from heaven. I will forgive them and make their land fertile once again.